Hello, everyone. See if you can switch on your cameras. It will be interactive. Uh, let's talk about victories. How is everyone feeling? Are they able to make progress? Let's start with that. I know Sharath has completed this specific task, and we will see that demo. But for others, how are they feeling? Are they looking forward to the demo and then trying to implement, or some other people also have victories?
Hi Sanjeev, Krishna here.
Yes, Krishna.
Yeah, I made some progress. So I haven't been able to do this on the cloud yet, but I've got a local instance of both the apps, Vet Clinic, and connected to the database, running as separate containers, and able to talk to each other, and yeah, able to use that in ArgoCD to monitor. So
Awesome.
yeah, I can
Awesome.
can do that.
See if you can demonstrate after Sharath, and
Yeah, sure.
maybe a lot of people are also doing locally as well, like not installing it in cloud. So it will be useful, but doing it in cloud would probably be another step.
Yeah.
But how are you feeling? You're finding it interesting, something different?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been quite challenging to begin with, particularly because there's not full time that I'm able to allocate. But yeah, I'm learning a lot of things. I've been not having anything at all from last week to making a progress in terms of having Argo CD set up and seeing those apps, scaling up and down and all those things. So yeah, really interesting to learn all of this.
Anybody else want to share their learnings? How are they? Have they experimented something else? Maybe a different Docker, maybe somebody doing on Azure platform. I think maybe one of you should try, if somebody is into Azure, should give it a try on there as well. Also, Sharath shared the files. So if somebody is not able to get started or not able to spend a lot of time onto this, maybe they can try taking that container and then connect their Argo CD setup to his repository and then work from there. You won't be able to make changes with this, but or maybe fork it. So try that sort of thing. If you are running short on time, you will definitely get some confidence that yes, you have developed something. You are able to uh, decode the source code and be able to understand that. All right then, Sharath, are you ready? You able to show us what your success is, and then we can discuss on that.
Yeah, sure.
Switch on
I think
camera.
somebody was talking. Sumit or somebody was talking. Yeah.
Yeah, if others can go on mute, please.
Let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
We can see your screen. Just explain like all the steps if anybody is joining. A lot of people are coming in the second, third week also. Give them some idea.
Sure. So I'll just start with what is the objective of the project that we were told initially. So to begin with, this is the pet application that we are supposed to host, uh, and this should also get connected with your MySQL database, so that if you add a new entry, for example, let's say you add an owner here, this should go and sit on your MySQL DB, okay, or MySQL or Postgres, whatever it is, and you can also connect with your RDS database as well, which I tried, which works well. And the next requirement was once you're able to make the application connect with your database, even if the database goes offline, the data should not get removed. So that's where the persistent volume claim comes in picture. And so I have tested it out where even if I restart the MySQL pod, the data won't go away. So I'll show why it doesn't happen that way, or how do we implement the persistent volume claim, and how do we, there's a different process when it comes to persistent volume claim on Amazon or AWS, because you need few drivers to talk to the elastic block storage. That is something we'll have to implement. But if it's on the Minikube, it works fine. You don't need to worry about much. And also, I faced challenge with connecting the application with the database. So without the DNS, it was not able to talk to MySQL. Okay, so this is about the application, and these are the pods which are currently running. So I'm running a single instance of database, and
Sure. Can we look at the some of the config files, manifest files that you have written for these applications?
Sure. Yeah.
That will be then we can jump on to demo.
Sure. Yeah. So let me go to.
Especially the persistent volume and the MySQL.
Sure. Okay, so this is the deployment file for MySQL, which I'm using. And I'm not segregating each and everything in a different directories. So everything is together. For example, your MySQL requires a secret, and it also requires a service. And as I mentioned that on AWS, you need a storage class so that it can talk to your EBS or the elastic block storage, right? So that's why I'm using the storage class. And after that, this is my persistent volume claim, where I'm using the same storage class which I mentioned above, and I'm just claiming 2 gigabytes. Okay, and this is my deployment file. The challenge that I had with integrating the MySQL with the application is this. Let me, okay, I'll show you the deployment file for application. Okay. So this is the deployment file for application. Even here, I have a service, and then I have a deployment. And the way you talk to MySQL is using this URL. So this is a major, very important thing. So without this, you will not be able to talk to the database. And also, when you start your application or the container, it should also start with a profile called MySQL. And only then the application will try looking for a database. It can be a MySQL or it can be Postgres.
So this is the name of your service, right? MySQL-service.
Yeah, MySQL service. And the challenge I was facing is just with MySQL service, it was not able to talk to the database service. So I had to put in this DNS config, where this is the default name server, and this is my domain name of the namespace. Okay, that's where it's going to look for. And both MySQL and the application is within the same namespace. So that's how they talk to each other.
Perfect.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I managed to connect without DNS. with the name server only, with the
Are
URL.
you use is it on the EKS or not?
EKS, yes, EKS.
Okay, maybe yeah, I'll
I
have a
didn't
look.
use DNS. Simply, I
Okay,
use the URL. I mentioned my MySQL server service name there. Yeah.
okay.
So
Then I'll have
we
to see
can
what's the problem.
people can give a try, like without DNS also, like yeah.
Okay, good.
We can get the DNS from AWS or
Yeah, you can. How I came to this point is I connected to the MySQL pod that was running, and once you connect to it, if you just cat etc result.conf, you will have all the values. So I picked it from there and I have put it over here. I can show you what I'm talking about once I'm done with this.
okay.
Okay, so the very basic thing that we were supposed to know is that uh, I talked about the image that I have created. It instantly starts up with the profile MySQL. So for that, I have changed the image itself. If you look at this -d spring active is equal to MySQL. So this is my entry point. So this is something I have hard coded because I couldn't find a way to integrate this variable within the pod.application YAML deployment file. So this is how the image will get built, and when it starts with a profile called MySQL, and that's how it is able to talk to MySQL pod. Okay, this is something you should be aware of before you start. And initially I tested with running just the Docker containers, two Docker containers, one for the database and one for the application. And later on, I went ahead and implemented on Kubernetes. Okay, I can sure give you the Docker commands as well to run. And yesterday I was with some Rohit to work on the. He was facing some problem with Minikube. So using the same Docker image that we have, which is a public repo, right? Okay, yeah, this is a public repo, and we were able to implement this using this image. We were able to implement the same thing on Minikube as well.
Awesome. So 2 or 3 points you were able to implement on the Minikube as well. So that to an extent proves that these are actually platform independent deployments. So
Right.
some of the advantages you can talk about that in case your environment goes down, you have to create a new replica somewhere. It will be very quick. You create the cluster and then certain changes and your ArgoCD will be able to pull your entire cluster and create it in few seconds. So that sort of use cases you can talk about. Then also you mentioned that first try to get the Docker image working with probably an RDS or some other setup. So once you are confident that once the image starts, then there is no issue, because these are the 2 or 3 issues that happen. Either you don't have the enough compute in your environment, you don't have enough resources in your cluster, that new containers you are not able to create, or you are creating a lot many replicas which it is not able to create on a T2 micro or something. The other major reason is that your Docker image itself is not very stable and not properly done. So that is another reason that usually in the environment, the applications are not able to start. You will see a lot of errors people encounter because of a container not being stable or not built properly. So that's a good thing that you guys first sort out the Docker, test it with an RDS or a local MySQL or something of that sort, and then go with deployment to cluster.
Right. Okay. So if I talk about the steps that I followed. I have a Terraform for Terraform scripts for starting up the EKS cluster, and post that once the cluster has started, I have few setups that has to be done, which is manual for right now. Sorry, is somebody talking?
Suresh, can you go on mute?
Sharath, can you unmute yourself? I muted everyone.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so once the EKS cluster was up and running, here are the steps that I followed. Initially, as you all know, we need to download the config file to talk to the cluster. And this is my two-node cluster. These two are the worker nodes, which was up. And if you remember, I mentioned that if you have to create a PVC, your EKS cluster should be able to fetch the storage from AWS. So what I mean by that is if I go to instances and volumes, you see I have a PVC here, which is of 2 gig, which is what I have it in my deployment file as well. And in order for the EKS cluster to get this, we need to add an OIDC provider. This is something I read through the documentation on AWS. So you need to have an OIDC provider, and then you also need to attach a role which is called Amazon EKS EBS CSI driver. CSI refers to container storage interface. Okay, this is a driver which we need on the cluster to talk to the EBS. Okay, and post that we need to have an something called as add-on that basically you are kind of initiating the driver to talk to EBS. So something of that sort. That's how I understood. But I'm not quite sure what exactly this step is. But what I understood is you are kind of initiating the driver to talk to EBS. Okay. So this is quite mandatory if you're using EKS. Else you will. I have seen that even if you run your deployment, the PVC will be in pending state. Okay. And
These steps are very specific to the platform that we are
right.
in the mini cube. You will probably not have to do a lot of these. A lot of them is by the Docker desktop or any such tool that you have installed. Azure, there will be different steps to do these based on their container platform, AKS. So yeah, these are very specific steps to do. But mainly what you are doing is you are requesting, and this is the storage class to work properly. And you would probably do it once. You won't have to do it on daily basis or for every pod or for every setup. This is at cluster level.
But it has to be done before we create the ArgoCD and do the installation of ArgoCD?
I don't think so. ArgoCD needs to know, or ArgoCD writes anything to the storage class. It is any container that requests for persistence volume. So Pet Clinic, MySQL, yes, but not ArgoCD. But overall, in the organizations or everywhere, this will be a day zero step. This is not when you start deploying applications. This is when you are trying to set up your cluster. The storage class, persistent volume, and all is considered as a part of the cluster setup. But technically, it's required when you are actually going to make the storage claim.
All right. So to continue with, and since I'm using the GP2 class storage class here, there are other ways to do it. You can also use PFS, or maybe you can also use S3 if I'm not wrong. But the way you do it is quite different, and you can also use an XFS file system to provide your PVC, to perform the PVC claim. Okay. And once I'm done with this, yeah, this is not mandatory before the ArgoCD. This can be done after that, after the ArgoCD installation. And this is purely ArgoCD installation, and I'm just setting up load balancer for ArgoCD, so I can look at the ArgoCD instead of using a node port or something. Okay, and once I'm done with ArgoCD, these are all the steps for to fetch the credential of ArgoCD and convert it to base64, and using admin credentials, you can, this is the password, and you can log into your ArgoCD. Okay, and after that, here is the db.yaml and app.yaml. So this is ArgoCD deployment file. Let me show you on. So this is the app.yaml where I'm telling ArgoCD to use this particular GitHub repo and use this as a bucket. Okay, and this is where my deployment file resides. So, and where should that go to? The destination is, this is the default service, and then the namespace is app. So your deployment will go and sit on the namespace app. That's how the ArgoCD takes care of it. And also, I have given the sync policy and auto heal, which is self heal is true. So just to make sure that we don't have to intervene in between, and ArgoCD takes care of everything when you make changes on the GitHub. So it will straight away pull the repo and implement. And similarly, I have another deployment file for the DB, and this is the same story. Just only thing here different is the target version, which is dev, and the path is DB, and rest of the things are same. Okay, and I'm doing the same. I'm just copying it over here on my Git bash and creating the DB, and then once I'm sure that the DB is running, later on and also this is the step which I was not able to finish it off. I faced a lot of problems because of that EBS driver, and this is your PVC claim. You see that we have a 2 gig of space that we have claimed, and it is read write, and the storage class is EBS storage class. Okay, you should see it as bound, which means that it's able to use it. Earlier, I was getting something as pending, and I was not able to see any of these values before. And this is the storage class that we defined in our deployment. This is the EBS storage class. Make sure that it's the policy is retained, so that even if your pod restarts, the data will still be there. It will not go away. Okay. And once I confirmed all of this, that the database is working fine and everything, I created the application, or deployed the application rather. And this is how it looks. So And this is the service, and the pet clinic service. I'm actually using the load balancer to connect to. This is my load balancer. That's how I'm able to connect to. Okay. And later on, I just added something on the pet clinic. For example, where is that? So let's say I'll add a new owner. Let's say XXX something city and then 999. Okay, you just add owner. Okay, and then you should be able to see this on your database. And let me show you how to check that. You need to run this command. This is specific, very specific to Git Bash because I'm connecting from Windows. So you don't need to use WinPTY. Okay, you just ignore that. Okay, now I'm inside the MySQL DB pod. Okay, and let me connect to the database. These are all the tables where the entry goes into. Right now we added owners. So that's where I will look whether we have the new owner entry or not. Okay. I missed from. You see this, we have XXX that we just added. And similarly, you can also add pets, specialties and types and other things. And you should be able to see it.
Cool, perfect. So now, to what level of failure can this cluster withstand? You would have tried killing pods and everything. Can we delete the worker node and then try this?
Sure. And before that, somebody asked me about DNS. I'll just show them.
Sure.
So somebody was asking about the name server and stuff. So this is how I picked it up. Okay. All right. So you want to kill the worker node, right? Let me try. I'll just stop one of this node.
You have two nodes, right, in your...
Yeah, I have two nodes.
How do we know where it was?
Ideally, I mean, if you look at the real-time scenario, it should still go on to other worker node because the replica set is set to 1. So it should be able to pick the other worker node if I'm not wrong.
Yeah,
And then and before, yeah, so it is terminating and it's trying to come up on another node here.
Could you please run get node?
Get node, okay. And probably So there's only one Walker node right now. Is and I'm hoping that since the persistent volume claim was on this node, and hopefully it is able to pick that up.
Rather, actually type the logs instead of describe. Yeah.
Sorry, my bad. Actually, one sec. Okay, looks like we have a taint, I believe.
So you terminated one, it has
It has on its own has started
created another
another
one.
node.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
That's the expectation, right? We terminated the node, but now the pod should also be scheduled.
yeah. Looks like it has some node affinity rules or something. And I'm just trying to check.
You can check for PVC and all. Let's see if those are there or not.
Sure.
No taints. Taints has none.
Things are none, and there is no affinity also. Still there. This is running system. It is not able to come up.
We didn't specify any such affinity or.
No, we didn't. It was all default.
So somewhere there is a bit of hard coding or somewhere that you have applied that storage is sort of associated with that instance.
Let me check on the volumes if it gives me anything.
Hello.
Yep.
Sharath, you can delete both the pods, man. Let's see if they'll. Since we have 2 nodes now, maybe they can.
Sure. But I'm just trying to say, it should have come up on its own. We don't have to.
No, but that is in pending state, right? So is it some storage
Okay,
issue?
yeah. It says attached instances is this.
Is it the old
This
one?
is what. Yeah. Let me check.
Just click on this. It will tell you whether it's an active one or.
Yeah, this is the one we stopped. This is the problem.
So in some of the commands you have probably it has been attached to it, but that's is expected.
Right. I may have to check if I provide 2 replicas, what's going to happen, whether both the nodes will be able.
So I think the storage class has to be that it will have to be attached to the instance, that is for sure. But
right,
when the instance stops, that attachment should not be valid.
Right. Well, I'll have to take a look and search on Google.
Cool. All right. Just so that everyone understands, this is pretty much what Sharath has done is pretty much the replica of the architecture diagram we had in the slide. Again, I'll just take over the screen share once.
Sure.
You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
This is pretty much what we want to achieve, right? We have a service for the front end and a service for the back end, MySQL, and these are the environment variables that the Docker image should be able to accept. And PVC, PV, and storage class is what was demonstrated. So all of this is done. It is the HPA is what usually a lot of in the interviews and stuff you will be discussing. So maybe next week we can add a few HPA related deployments as well. And yeah, we'll test it. We'll see how it goes. But these are the additional scenarios you should experiment with: terminating the pods, terminating the entire nodes. If you have 2 nodes, terminating them and see what issues you are getting. Are you able to recreate your application in few seconds or that sort of thing? Also, can we put the UI and DB container in the same pod? Is that possible? Would somebody want to try this stuff as well? Can we experiment having one single pod where you are able to have MySQL as well in the same pod and also the UI container as well? So do experiment with this stuff as well. This one single pod containing like this. And obviously the storage class will be shared between different pods. So try to do this, see if we are able to do it. Okay. Over to you, Sharad. You want to show something else that I wanted to give somebody like everybody and like what we are trying to do.
Yeah. So only I would say that where I struggled was figuring out how to use the application itself. So let me share my screen for a minute.
Yeah.
If I, okay. So initially where I struggled is to start the application using the MySQL profile. And if you go through the source directory here, there is a main and then you have resources. And there's an application properties for MySQL. Okay. And using this application property file, that's how I came to know that this is what application expects if it has to connect to database.
Okay.
And also this is the user, and these are basically the variables, and it expects pet clinic as a username and the password. And since it's a variable, the password can be anything, but here it is just pet clinic and pet clinic. And one more thing is I was not able to see is how to start the application with with my SQL, and this is the document which helped me. So here you have a Docker Compose app. So this is something you can use to start your MySQL, and you have this Docker Compose file itself in the here somewhere here. Yeah, here. So you can use this, and
So did you
this is
use
the
this
command.
in your okay, you will use this command, not Docker Compose, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I have not used the Docker Compose.
Right.
And this is the main command which tells you application to start with this profile. And this is the file which you can take a look at.
Correct. And I think they start explaining this in the root of the repository as well, in the README file itself.
Yeah, but it was quite confusing. I couldn't understand everything of it.
You go to this, it will tell you that database configuration. So it says that by default, you see, you run with a different profile, spring.performance.active equal to MySQL for MySQL and for Postgre. Yeah.
Right. Here the -d is missing, which is also a parameter. So I used this. It didn't work. So that's where I got confused with. If you look at the MySQL Bitconnect DB setup, right? There is a -d spring. So that's missing on the README. And also, many people would not know how the Spring works. So even if you could add the this thing, if you could also add this point in the README, that would also help them. So they don't have to worry much about or research more on the Spring. So I had to check how the Spring Boot works and stuff, since this is something new for me, and I found a very good document online. So using that, I was able to figure this out.
Yeah, so all this is part of the debugging, building the image. We didn't spend a lot of time building container image in this specific project as such. Main focus was to get the container, the Kubernetes knowledge. But yeah, you will have to have a stable image for sure.
Right.
Perfect. I'm sure you would have learned quite a lot in this project.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I never worked on the Terraform, so somehow I managed to learn Terraform a bit, hosting the EKS cluster. That's how I started, and then I never wrote anything for the Docker file, so I googled a lot, ChatGPT helped me also to
That's why I saw
to
you
some
using an
extent.
older version of Kubernetes as well, right?
Yeah, because the newer version I had some problems, so I changed the version to 1.23, and uh, it's like the industry standard, right? You never use
The latest.
something which has just launched.
Yeah.
You always use the stable ones. So
And also ChatGPT helps up for the older version better.
right. And ChatGPT, I'll need to probably run how the prompt works more, because it was giving me in generic terms. But having Google, it helped me. And this is a Docker command which I initially ran to, try out to connect the application with the database. So if this works fine, then probably from there you can take it up. Anybody can try and proceed further.
Perfect. Perfect. Awesome. Anyone has questions for Sharath in general? Any question on the demo?
I have. So first of all, thank you so much, Sharath, for demonstrating it. It's really helpful. And congratulations to everyone whoever has reached to this level or maybe close to it. And excuse me for that also, because maybe the question what I'm gonna ask is not that relevant, maybe not mean much to you, but yeah, your reference is appreciated. So basically, I am to the same level. I couldn't do last week much, but every time when I try to initiate the ArgoCD deployment, that's where the place I got stuck. What things I have done from my end, I tried giving all the accesses. The traffic was open for everything. Now that is where this problem is coming, where the driver of my laptop is getting weak. I mean, Wi-Fi is getting uninstalled, the driver, and all of a sudden I come with no network zone. And that Wi-Fi driver, I had to install it, and that once you trigger the Terraform, Terraform has already created 25 or 26 things in AWS. So that will leave it in running state. And just to save the cost, you have to manually. So what I did, I connected to my other device, and I at least manually shut down those things first, and then I reinstall the Wi-Fi driver on my laptop and tried again. But this has happened 4 times. So I kind of stopped and now worried that whatever the process I am following is something, it has a loophole, because every time when I trigger that Terraform script, uh, when it reaches to that stage where I have to configure the ArgoCD, and I open all the ports manually, the ingress and outgress both, but somehow the
What do you mean
driver,
by open the ports?
the security groups where we allow traffic for all traffic we allow. So that's what I was changing, if
No,
that works,
I
because somebody
didn't.
suggested me that.
Yeah. Yeah, but we discussed, right, that we don't have to do that.
Yeah, somehow that didn't work then, Sanjeev. I am to the same state. It's not moving forward. Sorry. Yeah.
Um, I would suggest you discuss in the group, have a screen share with Sharath or people who have done it. It's a very strange issue specifically on your side, I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't suggest we debug in this environment, but
I
it's
know.
you
Yeah.
brought it up and we can
Right.
look at it. Because we are not, this sort of issues happen if you are using Minikube or you are using a lot of Docker desktop on your laptop, which may interfere with the Wi-Fi or some other driver that you have. But if you are using on EKS, there shouldn't be any such issue.
Okay. So what I'll do this week now, I'll try in next 1 or 2 days. Sharath has demonstrated everything, so that was really nice. I will try to follow. If Sharath, your repository is updated, the Git repository, I'll try to replicate the same. I'll try to pull that code and replicate the same way you have done, and we'll see if that problem doesn't occur and I move forward to the step where I am stuck. Then I probably will be able to. But yeah, I'm gonna give a shot with this method today.
And there shouldn't be any need for security groups to be opened
Yeah.
up for that ArgoCD port or anything of that sort.
Okay, I'll try that. But yeah, this is where I am.
But again,
It's a strange one.
even if you end up opening ports or do any such thing, it shouldn't interfere with your Wi-Fi or any driver on your laptop. That's all in the
Exactly.
cloud or somewhere else, right?
Exactly, Sanjeev. And that's strange because this is not the first time. I have said total number of occurrences were close to 4 because it's not just the
Where
first
are
day.
you building
Last
your
week was.
Docker image? The image Docker image is being built.
I haven't even reached to that point, Sanjeev. So
Where-
I am to that point where the EKS cluster is being generated using Terraform, and while installing the ArgoCD to that cluster.
Okay. Okay. Just bring it.
But I'll try that. Yeah.
Yeah. Try that one more time. If you have another device or something, try with that. Try to change the way you have set up your laptop. Try to use minimal local resources and use as much as in the cloud. So for example, you are pulling the repository from Sharath. Instead of pulling it on your local, there shouldn't be any issue, but you can also start your AWS console and you can pull in your console area itself.
Oh, okay.
So that also is a possibility. So then
Sure,
everything will be in cloud. Your local desktop will not come into picture at all.
Okay.
And you will also not have to create a new EC2 instance, because if you create a new EC2, it will cost you, but the console, the terminal will not cost you that much.
All right. Okay. Thanks, Sanjeev. I'll try that. Thanks.
Cloud Shell. Okay. Anybody else has any questions where they are stuck? Should we move on to the next stage of the project, or should we spend some more time on this? What's the general feedback? How do you want to proceed? Because I don't see a lot of success here. Like, I know Sharath has spent a lot of effort and then he has reached here.
Hello.
Sorry, Sanju. Actually, I just want to share my experience.
If any, you can open the camera, then it will show up in front. I don't see who is talking.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of names are there. Pawan, it's Pawan, right?
Yes.
Yes, Pawan.
Can you see me?
When did you started on this project? Is it day one itself, or you?
Yeah, from the day one I started. Okay. If you don't mind, I want to thank Sharath for his help. Basically, I want to share my experience with this one. Like, if someone gets some kind of help from this, the only place I struggled is this one, Sanju.
Okay.
This Docker image. Okay. After getting some idea from Sharath, I realized, I need to include this.
Yes.
This is, you can see my Docker. So basically 2 Docker images. One is this one. This is for pet clinic. And the other one is from the README itself, like, whatever you explained, right? README.
-D, I think, is a sort of Docker way of saying this. It is not a parameter. -D is specific to Docker.
Yeah. -D specific Docker. Yeah. That is one image, and the second one image is this one. I created using this one, this command. And once they both are in my Docker, you can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Once those two are in my Docker hub, pretty much easy and simple. Like, this is my MySQL image, and after that, this is my Spring Pet Clinic image.
Okay.
So if we manage to build these two images, right, the other one is not that difficult.
Right.
So, and this is my Terraform where we all my ML files, this EKS. Yeah, as Sharath explained, I automated this one with the help of Google. Like, this is the place where I created this certificate EKS related. This is OIDC, and this is the driver which we need to install, IAM policy and all, and add on. You can find this one from this one. I have README how to do everything, like all the, like, ArgoCD, everything I try to automate, like, using shell scripts, like, I used I'm
Step-by-step
installing
commands. Now people can easily follow this.
So basically, I prepared a small README also, so that the manual steps are only this one. Maybe we can automate this also. Like AWS configure is the only thing which we need to do manually. Others will get installed using shell script. Yeah.
So learning, I would suggest spend a little bit of time understanding how the image will be built, because that's a struggle area. Because the image can start in 3 different options: Postgre, MySQL, and also a local database that Pet Clinic has, which will not be persisted and cannot be used for production kind of application. So it has all the 3 options. Even if you don't have any MySQL or any such option, you just run the Pet Clinic without a MySQL profile. You can still run and see some of the previously made entries, and that kind of setup it has, because it's being used for learning and such activities. The repository is quite famous from that point of view, and that's why they have given so many options. So you need to understand that how you build it and how you start the container, so that it's matching your desired environment. So start with MySQL in this case. And once you are confident that yes, the image is working, probably with an external RDS MySQL endpoint or something similar, then you can try to deploy it on the Kubernetes cluster. But now you have a lot of examples, Sharath, Pawan, and you can get their repository. We built the same image in the July batch also, but we didn't deploy it on Kubernetes. We deployed it through different process on EC2. So I was confident that this will be, you guys can take help from anybody from the last month batch also, to maybe get a little deep into how they built it.
Yeah, hello.
Yep. Camera, please. I can't see.
Actually, sorry, I can't open camera right now because I am sitting in a public library.
Okay.
Okay, maybe my voice is also a little bit, so you guys have to adjust.
No worries, no worries. Let's go for your question.
Yeah, okay, so I also want to share my experience as well. Like Sarath also mentioned that we have implemented those things on Minikube cluster as well. So first of all, I would like to share that I have able to deploy all the implementation that Sarath have done through. The only difference is he has demonstrated via EKS cluster, but I used Amazon Kubernetes cluster, Amazon managed cluster, but I used Minikube for the implementation. And one major doubt I came across, so I would like to share that, and that other can also get benefit of this. Is let me share my Docker file. Like the problem with is the Docker image I have built. The application is running perfectly, but I have build a Docker image that have that database, like MySQL database is not connecting to the application that the repository you have provided. Like there is a database regarding the apps and on bit and the honors. So I have just implemented a normal MySQL plain database. So this is the problem where I got facing. Then Sarath helped me like how to connect with the actual application database.
Okay. Do you want to show something like how you have done it? How?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen.
I know somebody in the chat was asking a couple of days ago that somebody doing on Minikube. So yeah, that's a good reference for them.
So my screen is visible?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me just first go through the Docker file I have. So this is the Docker file through which I have built the image. Like simply like
Still
I have
can't
used.
see this screen. Is it just me or can't see your
No,
screen?
I think
I
his
also can't
internet
see.
is little slow. It just still
Just
says sharing.
Yeah. Apart from that, we cannot see screen.
yeah.
Apart
No,
from
it's not
the
visible. So maybe some other time, or you
Okay,
retry once if it's
let
successful.
me retry once again.
one quick question, Sanjeev. This is Karthik here. So, sorry, last week I couldn't attend the session and joined a little late for this session also. But I have a quick question after going through the videos of the previous ones and I have a doubt like what kind of AWS infrastructure which we need for this, for the kube control, Kubernetes pods. Public subnets, we require in private subnets or public subnets. So just one, I think I couldn't
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it
So,
exactly.
yeah. In this particular setup, we are not going so close to the production environment. Ideally, they should be in the private subnet, the instances, and there shouldn't be need to open a specific port or a specific security group as such. So those are the basic things as of now we are focused on. Uh, but yeah, the nodes will follow a specific AMI and a lot of other hardening steps. We are not doing all that level of security practices as such in this, other than having the nodes in the private subnet and not opening this any of the security group. We'll let the control
Okay.
plane manage that.
Okay. So basically, we are creating a VPC, and inside of it, we in the public subnet, we have that Kubernetes, pods in one
Private
environment. We
subnets.
get
You can go for private subnets. There is no restriction.
okay.
You can go for private. I'm
Yeah.
sure Sharath was using private subnet, right? Or Sharath?
No, it was all
All public. Go for a
default.
private. Go for private subnets as well.
Is,
Your
is my
load
screen
balancer that
visible?
gets created, your that will be in public subnets automatically.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
So
is
load
my
balancer
screen?
are in public subnets, and the EC2 instances are in the private subnets, and that and load balancer endpoint. It will be the public so that we can able to access from outside the pods inside of it.
Yeah.
So we are creating only one cluster. In what one cluster we are giving pods, differentiate between the namespaces.
Okay. The environment, we just want to save cost. So that's the reason. Again, if you go into production, you probably won't share your same cluster for production and non-prod environments. But just for practicing and that point of view, we will use the namespace to differentiate between different environments, and also the repository branches. We will use that dev is deploying to a dev namespace in the same cluster, and the main branch is deploying to the production namespace in the same Kubernetes cluster. Yes,
Yeah.
Rohit, your screen is visible.
Okay, so yeah, what I am sharing that this is my Docker file. Let me show them. Is it visible?
Yep.
Okay. So for building the Docker image, I use multi-stage Docker file. Like this is building the image, and from this build, just copy all the things like that. And here we are we are giving the commands like this and fjar. So what is this Docker file do? Just simply build an image, but the problem I facing with the database part, like the actual database, I am not connecting with the database that the app you provided.
Yeah.
So this was the issue. So if someone is trying to do this one, then we have to work on that part also.
Then you
Like
need to start your container with your entry point should be starting with that MySQL, right, Sharad? That's the approach, right? This will probably use the default MySQL.
yes, it was using that.
Yeah. You need to change the parameter in the
Yeah.
last line in your Docker file to use MySQL, and then the remaining other changes that you
I,
need to
I
do.
am I am I am able to apply all those concepts like persistent volume and persistent volume claim in the plain database, and the data is also preserved and made some entry and all the thing, but that was not fetching the actual database of the application that you provided. Hope you are getting what I'm trying to say.
Okay. No,
So
I'm actually
I
not getting. If it is saving the data, then that's all we need, right? If it's saving, but in your case, it may be saving temporarily. If you do the same, if you terminate the pods, if you terminate the node, your data will not be persisted.
no, let me explain once again. Like I am using the, let me show my doc files once again. So it's okay. So what I was saying, like if this thing is suggested by uh, uh, Sarat, that I am not using this variable in my pet app deployment file.
Exactly.
Okay, so it is not connecting with the actual database. I simply use the Docker image that I have pushed to the Docker hub
Correct.
by this Docker file.
Correct. So that Docker file also has a MySQL running inside that Docker. You can think of that way, and that will be destroyed the moment your UI container itself gets destroyed. So that's why you're saying the pod, uh, the it's very awkward seeing myself on screen 2-3 times. Uh, so
Sorry.
uh, show us the Docker file that you have.
Okay.
So the Docker file, if you look at the README of the pet clinic, you will realize that it can start in 3 different modes. You can specify an external MySQL, or you can run just like your app.jar. You can run this and it will connect to a local. Look at the README file of the pet clinic app.
Okay. Definitely, and I think that my thinking, Sanjeev, I think we should spend one more week on so that everyone can reach to this part, because I think many people is struggling, they are not reached that part, and
This
that
is
is
the
great as well.
crucial, this is the important part to get right and experiment with some additional cases also. Put it,
Yeah,
like if somebody has done it, putting MySQL and this one in the same pod, not in the same container, in the same pod.
but okay,
Uh,
okay.
and also at least come to this level that these two or three guys have come up to. So you try to come up to that level. Then you can experiment with that.
And I will also try to implement those things using Amazon Kubernetes cluster. So I think
You
we
can
should
try that. And then terminate the node, try to see what happens. Your pod should recreate themselves. There was some issue. We'll see how we can fix that as well. So I think let's spend some more time, because next is the monitoring side of it. It will be good if we have the application running in a stable environment, like in the cluster, so we can better understand the metrics and all the monitoring side of it. We can do it without because even EKS or any cluster will have its own pods and own services that it needs for its operation. So, but it will be very uh, plain vanilla kind of Kubernetes. So it will be good if we have our own application running there. So then we can look at what sort of memory, CPU it's consuming, and by changing the configuration file of the Docker the deployment, we can see that things are changing. So that sort of experiment is only possible once we have a stable container image running. So yeah, I would suggest let's spend some more time on this, even if it means we have to do 1 or 2 extra sessions. We'll do that. But we probably next week we may not be able to like do a lot of demos of this stage. I'm expecting that you guys like follow these things. 2 or 3 success stories are already there, and there are not many code changes. It's a standard process. Anything in Kubernetes or this will follow pretty much standard, depending upon minor changes, whether you are using AKS or anything else. So if somebody wants to demonstrate on Azure, maybe they can do next week. If somebody has can show terminating the node and then recreating that sort of thing, basic thing, I think we have covered. And any debugging, Shailendra, let's do it in the group, and throughout the week we try to fix these issues.
Yeah, I mean, before reaching out to any individual, I would like to give all the everything from my end, so that if someone asks me, did you try that? I should be able to, available with that answer. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna try it, and then obviously I will reach with someone in the group. Yeah.
Right. Then I think next week we'll probably 30 minutes we'll talk about this stage of the project, and then the remaining part, then we'll get into monitoring side of the cluster monitoring. And then the next weekend we will probably have some demo on the monitoring, how you go, and then another session on how you build a story, how you demonstrate this project, how you can add additional features to the project later on, because Kubernetes it's not a 1 month journey, right? It's probably to master this field and to work on complex scenarios, it's probably 5-6 months of process. So we will see what additional things you can do after finishing this project. Those additional things I will document. You can take up after the completion. The WhatsApp group will be active, so you guys can communicate with each other. So at least your language is consistent, that okay, I have done phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and now I'm adding this feature. So you are not talking to a stranger that they are not aware what you are doing. So everybody will be on same page. That is the plan. I think that's all for this week. I think we should not spend a lot of time. We'll get into debugging and resolving these issues any specific platform. If somebody is doing only on Minikube, maybe they can take help from Rohit. He's doing locally right now, so that could be the thing. And also, like right now, we also have these repositories available, so you can take help from those repositories. But I would still suggest go with that process. Look at the README file. The image can be built in 3 different ways. Try to experiment. Try to come up with, say, a Postgre image rather than a MySQL, and experiment with that. Do these experiments. You will break things. You will learn quite a bit of new things by doing these experiments. And all these are possibilities. In your environment, you may be deploying. It's not necessary to have one pod, one container. It's a good practice to have it so that you can scale your containers based on whichever needs the compute and power. But for learning point of view, you can mix these different containers in a single pod also, and experiment such things.
Hi, Sanjay. Krishna here.
Yeah, hi Krishna. Where
Hi.
are you on the screen? I can't.
Yeah, I'm in video.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, hi. So just a few things that I tried last week, albeit on my local environment, but one is the Postgres, probably works. If you have a few minutes, I'll share my screen.
Let's do it. Anybody bringing Postgres or Azure is welcome.
Hope you can see my screen.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, the thing that I wanted to show was, I've tried with Postgres, as you mentioned. So yeah, it seems to be working okay. So this is, first of all, let me show my repo. So this is my repo here. I've got segregation into 2 folders. One is for app, one is for DB. This is pretty much what I think Sharath has showed, quite similar in terms of how it's structured. A slight difference is that I've used a few different files as in for deployment and service. And again, for on the DB side, I've got this PV and the usual deployment and service. And yeah, it seems to be working okay in the sense that I can see, so I've added this data, some data myself, and it seems to have added. And just to experiment, what I did was I've just removed the whole cluster itself here. So for example, this is where I've got the deployment. So I've just deleted the whole cluster. And now if I try again, this is going to, I think this is trying to remember an old Jenkins installation. Let me just go to this one here. Okay. All right, so let me just bring it back up again.
When you said delete the cluster, you are not deleting the control plane and...
No, not the control plane.
So you are terminating the...
all the pods and services and deployments.
Yeah.
Yes, so if I just try going back again. So if I go back and so it's still retained that because of the PV.
Is it cached or something? Your containers are up in meanwhile?
Yeah, they are. Let me just so after restarting, they are back up.
Okay.
So that seems to be working okay. And the other thing that I tried was with this ArgoCD. So this is my first kind of experimenting with these tools, and they seem to be working fine. So I was also trying adding up the, putting some load with the HPA and seeing if it will add more ports. So I kind of tried that. So if I, for example, here try to put some additional load on the cluster. Let me try with this. So what this should essentially do is it should bring up a few more pods.
Awesome.
So
So you have added the HPA as well.
yeah, HPA as well. Yeah, that's right.
Can we look at this source code for that specific?
Yeah, sure.
So that everybody, they can like take source code from Sharath, and also in case they are doing MySQL, then they can add the HPA as well.
Yeah. So yeah, this is I think slightly older version of V1 where I've used the normal YAML file, and so I'm targeting the pet clinic app namespace, pet clinic name deployment, and yeah, minimum replicas and maximum replicas.
And you have kept the low
I've put
percentage.
low.
Yeah.
Yeah, low actually, but yeah, I think it should work. Initially, I had a lot of trouble getting this to work, but I think what was missing was I don't know if it's my deployment, but what I had to do was add this section under resources request. Unless I add this, it was not able to read the actual metrics from the for this specific application.
Oh, okay.
Once I add this, it was able to read this, and then it was able to scale as needed.
Awesome. So basically, for the HPA to determine what CPU and memory is allocated, you need to assign that value to your container, your maximum.
It looks good. Yes, yeah. I mean, it didn't work before that for me. But yeah, once I added that, it seems to be working okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was a couple of things that I thought I'd show that seems to be working okay. Yeah, I mean, the next step is trying to replicate all of this on the EKS possibly, but yeah.
But these new containers are not stable.
It could just be that, yeah.
They are.
I have put it on auto refresh, yeah, so just manually refreshing.
And did you notice that your sync is now, it's not in sync with your
Right. Yeah, that's right. So
if you do synchronize, it will reduce.
yes,
because your Git repository says we just need 2 of them.
correct, exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
an
yeah.
out of sync cluster in Argo or an app not necessarily means that it is not functioning well or anything. It means that the control plane has taken some actions, and based on that the state has changed.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So we have another story. We have a PostgreSQL setup. And now the Docker image, going back to Rohit, the Docker image will be different in this case. It will not use that MySQL. It will use another third option. Can we see the Docker image once? The Docker Docker file basically.
Yeah. So I built the Docker file as part of the last batch, but yeah, it's from. So I'm getting it from here. This is my Docker image. You meant to say how it was built? Is that what you're asking, or
how the Docker image was built? Because then that parameter will be different for this situation.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, so this is how I built my Docker image.
Your last line is, this is different in this case.
Yeah,
If you are using local MySQL, then it will be what previously we saw, and then MySQL there is a different, and for Postgre there is a different parameter, and then it will use the right driver within the Docker image and will connect to that specific endpoint.
Mhm.
Awesome. That's good. So we have somebody doing some experiments and try with additional steps terminating the, right now we terminated the pods alone. Try to do it with the node being terminated also.
Okay. Mhm.
Then experiment with anything in the cloud. And somebody's, if they are working on Azure side, try to do it on Azure as well, or Google Cloud. So
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to ask in the group and yourself, if you come across, is when I had multiple containers on the database side, it seems to have caused some kind of issue with when I tried to destroy the pods and bring them back up. The container was not starting at all. It was complaining about some critical record missing in the logs. And then I had to basically take down the whole environment and recreate it. I tried looking it up, and it mentioned something about a possible database corruption when you have multiple instances of the containers running, and the data trying to be written inconsistently. So I mean, I'm not entirely sure what the cause is, but I didn't quite know why it just failed. And when I reinitiated the whole thing, it again worked okay. But yeah,
could be.
not sure.
Could be it's not a very production grade application. Maybe there are some issues when you are creating more than one container image and has a shared storage, because your database is shared between all three. Maybe some issue, but we could see, right, it's working with 5 or 6 containers now with different
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same problem
Mhm.
spinning up two MySQL pods. The reason I could figure out was that when we do PVC, it is tied to a particular availability zone. So, for example, right now we saw that when we crash the worker node, in the backend I also tried to assign that particular volume to another worker node which got started, but that is actually in availability zone 2A and my volume is in 2C, and I was not able to do it. So if you have a two pod, one will be running on 2A, another will be running on 2C. So there's no sync in between. And if the volume is in 2C, it will only work for 2C. It will not work for 2A.
Because they are regional
So
services.
correct. So they are
Regional
tied
as well
to
as
the availability zone.
the AZ specific.
Right. So that's where if you run two MySQL pods, it will not work out. But the solution what I could think of is maybe if we use EFS, the Elastic File Storage, that you can probably mount it as an NFS or something.
Yeah, is that the reason that we terminated the node and then it could not start because they were in
Correct.
different?
Yeah, in the backend I just checked. So that's the
Okay.
reason.
Okay.
So now I immediately stopped another one which started in 2A, and I kept doing it for 2-3 times. And now the server is back on 2C, and even the volume is in 2C, and now it's able to pick up.
Right. Because the backend, the storage is in a specific AZ and the instance is
Correct.
created in another one. So how do we solve this?
I'm thinking of Elastic File Storage that can be mounted as a NFS.
Shared storage to all the
Shared storage that is not specific to any AZ. So
Correct.
I'll give it a try.
I think it is GP2 also. I read it somewhere, like, you cannot attach to two or, more than one instance. Like if you
Yeah,
use
the one which I'm
IO2,
using is GP2 right now.
GP2, if you use IO2, maybe we can attach to multiple instances. I read it somewhere. So because I try to do it from Terraform, attaching the same, same EBS volume to multiple EC2 instances.
But they would be in same region, same availability zone.
Yeah, I think
probably you.
Yeah,
if you
I
do
think
it,
we can do that, but I'm not sure, but you can give a try using IO2 and GP2. Definitely, it is not. We cannot assign to multiple instances. As you said, maybe availability zone also we need to check. Yeah.
In your setup, you had multiple AZs.
Yes. Yes.
All right, let's experiment with these different options. Just write it down after the call immediately that what you want to do next 2-3 days. Then you will be able to work on it. Otherwise, it will be lost in the conversations. Everybody will have some actions that they need to reach to the level where Sharath, Pawan, these people are able to reach. Then these people will have challenge that they have to try terminating the node, getting the storage class available to new node and not having any sort of data loss. Then there are a lot of other scenarios after that, like not having any downtime, because in this process you will have a bit of downtime. A lot of other scenarios pop up, so those will park for future, and I'll show you, like I'll tell you what those additional things you can try afterwards. So that's the plan. Next week we'll spend 30 minutes on the this topic again, and then we'll move on to the next subject. And then next 2 weeks on monitoring, alerting kind of scenarios. And then last is where we will talk about how we build a story, how we present this in our resume, how do we showcase this project, and what else we can do. So that's how we will conclude everything. Any other questions before we close?
Sanjeev, so what is the industry standard that they use for the PVC clean on the cloud?
Industry standard as in, yeah, we use same EBS, EFS, whatever is relevant to the use case.
Okay.
Yeah, that's always like cloud specific storage. Same
Okay.
with any, like we are exposing it. So in specific use cases, we will have a reverse proxy through Nginx, but the application load balancer being used for ingress. So these are some of the things that are very specific to the cloud provider and will be created through those additional steps that you did, right?
Okay. Got it.
We want to use as much from the platform. That is why we are using a managed cluster. We want to use as much from the platform. Don't want to have our own storage defined, or I'm not sure if somebody would be using S3 for that sort of thing. Somebody mentioned there was S3, they can use S3 as well. Don't think that is a really good option unless there is a specific use case or it's technically possible, but don't see that's being used that much.
Okay.
It has to be something that can be attached to the instance. Okay. Anybody would have any other expectations before, like I told you the roadmap for next 3 sessions? Anything they would expect, something else to be brought in, something else that we can do so that it helps you guys a little more? Because I plan based on my knowledge, my understanding. I speak to Saurabh a little bit, who is helping me in this project, and he's getting ready for his own sort of beginner level boot camp. So if there is anything, you can let me know now, or you can send me in WhatsApp one-on-one or in the group. we'll try to see if we need more sessions or we need more any sort of ideas you have to make it more beneficial for you guys.
Yeah, so Sanjeev, actually just one question, how we can implement the security in all the process?
Okay, security best practices and enhancing the same project with additional security. Can we bring points for that? Will that be helpful?
Yeah, correct. That's what actually is. So we should include the security part as well.
Good.
How we can secure the application.
Sure. Because I didn't want to bring all the security things upfront. In our previous project, we started with security in mind, with having database in the secure subnet, not even private. Like private is still accessible from having a NAT gateway and that sort of thing. In this, that was the focus. But here it would have become really complicated, and you would see a lot of errors the moment you start implementing security best practices. So I avoided them, and yeah, it's a good point. So I will make a note that you would need all the security practices that can be implemented in the same project.
Yeah, that will help actually. So within one project, we can cover everything.
Yeah, I'm just writing it down. All right, then. I think if no more questions, we'll close the call for now. And anyway, WhatsApp group and other channels are anyway there, so we can connect. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate you guys coming and showing your source code, your demos, and all sort of things. I appreciate all the effort, and I'm sure it will benefit all of you guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye.